Midterm elections just months away. Good evening and welcome to this special Faith Nation. In Washington, I'm Caitlin Burke. Partisan politics are driving a wedge into America. The division, which was once focused in the political sphere, now branches out into all areas of life, including the church. Polling shows it's now among the top 3 reasons pastors want to walk away. So with the country just months away from another election, Abigail Robertson spoke with 2 faith leaders about how in a more Christ-like way.
The political hurt felt in a number of churches not only stresses ministers and leaders, it sets a bad example for non-believers. Pastor Eugene Cho claims a big part of this problem is a lack of discipleship within the body of Christ.
Does our faith in Christ, discipleship, does that inform our politics, or does our politics inform our faith?
Pastor Cho argues the church often looks outward when it comes to threats to the gospel, when we should instead be looking within.
I would contend that the greatest challenge is actually within the church, and that's cultural Christianity.
And he believes many professing Christians in the U.S. aren't practicing what it means to follow Christ.
It's when certain things supersede the lordship of Christ. And in my definition, that's really idolatry. And I am concerned that politics, while it's important and has value in our world and society, politics, if we're not careful, becomes the ultimate source of power in our lives.
Cho thinks the most important allegiance in our lives shouldn't be to a politician, but instead to Jesus Christ.
I think it's important for church leaders and pastors to really hear the alarm bells about the lack of discipleship. Perhaps we've allowed church members or even church institutions or churches to drink the Kool-Aid of allegiance to a particular political party.
Cho also warns not to demonize those who disagree with you.
Because as followers of Jesus, we are people of hope. And our hope is not contingent on a politics or a politician or a party or on trends, but it's contingent on the person of Jesus.
Justin Giboney, president of the AND campaign, works to help Christians be constructive leaders on both sides of the political aisle.
But also change how Christians view politics. We want Christians to be less partisan, less ideological, and focus on biblical principles first and foremost.
The AND campaign trains Christians in a nonpartisan way on how to engage in politics.
So I'm sure there'll be people that come out of there who are Republicans and some will be Democrats, but hopefully they'll be constructive leaders as they move forward.
Their training centers around the gospel and critiques both parties.
Coming into this next election, we're really going to be focused on Christians, not necessarily agreeing on everything, but being able to have constructive conversations and be constructive citizens rather than tearing everything down, which we see coming from both sides right now.
Giboney believes while it is important for Christians to vote and engage in politics, the key is to stand far enough away from either party to be able to provide honest critiques. Reporting from Washington, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, many Democrats have made the battle over abortion a major focus of this midterm elections. They're calling on people to protest by heading to the polls and vote out Republicans come November. But some Democrats support the decision to overturn Roe. Charlene Aaron brings us a look at how pro-life Democrats are feeling in this political climate.
There is currently only one pro-life Democrat in the House and one in the Senate. There's a sense that's because pro-life Democrats are being forced out of the party due to abortion rights being seen as a litmus test to run for office.
Pro-life Democrats are really struggling with where the party has gone so extreme that it's really alienating.
Kristen Day, executive director of Democrats for Life, believes that extremism, such as legislation supporting late-term abortion, has possibly led to a rebirth within the party.
We call them unapologetic pro-life Democrats. And it is an amazing group of people. And just this new evolution of really strong pro-life people. And some of our candidates, too, like Pastor Chris Butler, who's running for Congress in Chicago. just again, not stepping away from this commitment to this whole life view.
Pastor Chris Butler of Chicago Embassy Church Network is a Democrat who ran unsuccessfully for his party's nomination for Congress earlier this year in Illinois' 1st District. He's alarmed at the rate of abortions in the Black community.
When I started to see abortion rates and how people of color are overrepresented in abortion numbers, in the same way that we are overrepresented in incarceration rates, in dropout rates, in poverty rates. This abortion thing is not a mechanism for justice. It's probably more of a mechanism of injustice.
While abortion rights advocates often cite poverty as one reason women terminate their pregnancy, Butler argues against that theory.
That abortion actually doesn't solve poverty. Abortion doesn't close income gaps. Abortion doesn't create quality, affordable housing, doesn't create quality, affordable healthcare. And those are the things that people that I'm talking to in the district really want to have, because folks, again, 75% of the abortions that we have in this country are performed on low-income women.
27-year-old Trenae McGee, one of the youngest members of the Connecticut General Assembly, agrees.
I think this discussion of abortion and the racism in the abortion industry has really piqued an interest with young people. And so I've been receiving calls.
McGee won her state seat in a special election late last year.
My district is primarily Black and brown, and so it was not a concern. They are Black, they know they're Black, they love to be Black, and they're pro-life.
A devout Christian, McGee hopes to help others see the importance of valuing life.
It's a concern that, there isn't legislation protecting babies who survive abortions, infanticide, fetal trafficking. These things are happening.
I asked her whether pro-choice is the authentic position in the Black community.
There has been a stirring in a lot of Black people who've been afraid to say they're pro-life. 1 in 4 Democrats are pro-life. And even if they're not pro-life, people believe that there should be restrictions around abortion.
After voting against members of her party on a state abortion measure, the millennial lawmaker admits being Democrat and pro-life is not always easy.
I have accepted this challenge as a woman of faith, as a Black woman. You have to there's kingdom comes over culture, and culture obviously is very important, because there's times when people don't see your likeness or image of God. They see the color of your skin. And so I have accepted this call.
A call Butler says should be heard in both parties.
This issue of abortion really cannot afford to be left as a left-right issue. It really is a right-wrong issue, and it's one of those things that needs vocal support on both sides of the conversation.
A message Day hopes is heeded before it's too late for her party.
So there are 21 million pro-life Democrats out there who are very frustrated. I think this midterm election is going to be very telling about how little abortion extremism helps.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
He's been called a kingmaker, but how much influence does Donald Trump actually have among Republican voters? We'll explore it when Faith Nation returns. Election 2022. For months, voters across the country have been heading to the polls, casting their ballots in primary elections to decide who their candidates will be come November. Among GOP races, one thing is clear: the power of former President Trump isn't fading. Matt Galka brings us this look at how his endorsements can make or break a candidate's hopes of winning their primary.
The primary wins and the losses are starting to add up for former President Donald Trump. And while his word still goes very far in the Republican Party, his king-making ability might not be as ironclad this primary season.
You're going to send Dr. Oz to fight for you in the U.S. Senate? I want to pick somebody that's going to win, and this man is going to win. Come on up, Jake. There is no rhino in America who has thrown in her lot with the radical left more than Liz Cheney. Terrible. She has gone crazy.
The former president has not shied away from weighing in on some of the country's most pivotal races. And the question over how much influence he still brings to the table continues to be thoroughly dissected. One clear conclusion is that although Trump's blessing hasn't led to automatic wins, that doesn't mean it's not helpful. Trump picked up a big win early in the primary season with his endorsement of Ohio Senate candidate J.D. Vance. Vance was floundering in a crowded GOP field before Trump's welcome involvement likely carried Vance across the finish line for the primary win.
I've absolutely got to thank the 45th, the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Come November, the Ohio race will be seen as highly significant because the winner could go a long way towards determining control of the Senate chamber on Capitol Hill. He picked up more wins in Arkansas, North Carolina, and Georgia with Senate candidates he endorsed, but Pennsylvania's high-profile race put his influence to the test. Trump's backing of doctor-turned-television celebrity Mehmet Oz in the Pennsylvania Senate primary drew some criticism from voters.
I really think he's getting some bad information on that.
It's too Hollywood. I don't trust it. I could never know enough about him realistically to know if that is who I would want to vote for. I couldn't do it.
Oz found himself locked in a dead heat with opponent David McCormick. It led to a recount lasting into June, with McCormick eventually conceding. Then came a deja vu moment when the former president saw a repeat of 2020 defeat in Georgia. Trump backed challengers to incumbents Governor Brian Kemp and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. Political observers saw those endorsements as revenge plays, since both Kemp and Raffensperger went against Trump's calls to challenge Joe Biden's 2020 win in the state. After both won their primaries against Trump's preferred candidates, Cole Musio, the president of the Frontline Policy Council, saw it as a move-on moment for Georgia voters.
All we're talking about is yesterday. We're losing the fight today, and we're certainly going to lose it tomorrow. And so we've got to focus on principles. We got to get back to that space. And look, Donald Trump is still a very popular figure in the Republican Party and the conservative movement. He had a great 4 years. But I think the people around this country and the conservative movement are looking and saying, look, we can appreciate him without being obedient to him.
More primaries remain as the midterm elections approach in November, with the former president expected to play a big role down the stretch.
What I'm seeing is that Trump's popularity within the Republican Party isn't easily transferable to other candidates. I think President Trump himself is still popular, and voters are thankful for various things that he has done or continues to do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Republican voters are looking to Trump to tell them exactly what they should do and who they should vote for in every race.
It's worth keeping tabs on how many of Trump's candidates voters are supporting, because it could indicate how much support he has as the former president potentially eyes another bid at the White House. Matt Gelka, CBN News.
A bipartisan push to define the role of the vice president in elections. How lawmakers are trying to reform the Electoral Count Act when we come back. In largely partisan times, a bipartisan group of lawmakers are working together to reform something known as the Electoral Count Act. Their ultimate goal? To clarify the roles of not only the vice president, but of Congress when it comes to confirming a winner of a presidential election. So what exactly does the Electoral Count Act do? In short, the measure lays out how Congress counts electoral college votes from each state. Election in 1876, the Electoral Count Act established a joint session of Congress to oversee the counting of electoral votes. During that process, any written objection to the votes from at least one House member and one senator sends lawmakers back to their respective houses to consider the objection. The power to sustain or overrule placed fully with Congress. That scenario played out after the 2020 presidential election, and now the public hearings by the January 6th committee have thrust the law back into the spotlight. Lawmakers alleging that former President Donald Trump knowingly tried to exploit loopholes to stay in power.
What exactly did President Trump know? When exactly did President Trump know that it would be illegal for Mike Pence to refuse to count electoral votes? Here is one sample of testimony given by one of the witnesses before us today, the Vice President's General Counsel.
Did John Eastman ever admit, or as you know, in front of the President, that his proposal would violate the Electoral Count Act? I believe he did on the 4th.
Trump and others insist Vice President Mike Pence had the power to throw out certain election results or send them back to the states.
They were hoping that there would be objections made under the act by a member of the House and member of the Senate to the electoral votes coming from particular states, places like Georgia and Arizona, and then there would be a debate about whether they should be sustained or overruled. They were all overruled. And so the vice president did not have the power to then somehow change what the Senate had decided or what the House had decided. I think there were folks hoping he would do that, but he just didn't have the power to do it, neither under the statute nor under the Constitution.
Hans von Spakovsky, an election integrity expert with the Heritage Foundation, says the vice president's role in certifying election results is purely ministerial, which means he really doesn't have any power at all, a point Pence himself has addressed.
I had no right to overturn the election. The presidency belongs to the American people and the American people alone. And frankly, there is no idea more un-American than the notion that any one person could choose the American president.
While Spakovsky sees 2020 as an example of the Electoral Count Act working, a bipartisan group of lawmakers feel the law needs to be clarified. The bill clarifies that the vice president does not have the power to reject electors and makes it more difficult for Congress to object to an election by requiring the support of 1/5 of the House and Senate. It also says a state can appoint only one set of electors, which is submitted to Congress by one designated official. Candidates with concerns would take their case to a 3-judge panel and have an expedited path to the Supreme Court. Lawmakers are hopeful the bill will pass before the November midterm elections. Targeting the TikTok generation for political gain and winning over young voters with short videos when Faith Nation returns.
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
From dance videos to cooking tutorials or cute baby content, 1 million monthly active users tune in to TikTok. Tens of millions of them are in their 20s. Armed with that knowledge, the Democratic Party has launched a presence on the social media platform targeting Gen Z. David Brody reports on the DNC's latest strategy to prevent a red wave this November.
Today's hot social media landscape has a lot of top contenders: Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube. But the one making big waves is TikTok, with more than 1 billion active monthly users.
Oh, hello. Here's the Democratic message. We want a free and fair election.
A platform where anybody can make short videos and spin current events, politics, and any issue the way they want. Mark Meckler, the former CEO of Parler, lays out the challenge ahead.
The difficulty for the American people is to understand what's true and what's not. We have access to more information than, frankly, we've ever had in all of American history.
As usual in politics, the battle is on to win the spin game, especially among the early 20s Gen Z crowd. They're known to be politically active, and there's tens of millions of them out there. So far, Democrats have a sizable advantage. Given this is the first midterm cycle in the TikTok era, the DNC recently launched on the app, and they're getting more than 2 million views per week. Caroline Levitt is a Republican running for Congress in New Hampshire. At age 25, she is a member of Gen Z and would be the youngest person elected to Congress if she wins. She understands the battleground.
I want your viewers to understand just how significant and frankly dangerous
this is, that the DNC is now utilizing TikTok. This is the #1 app for my generation of Americans. It's where they go to seek their news. My generation is not going to go and fact check these videos. We've lost all critical thinking skills because of social media. So the Democrats are capitalizing on that. They're going to continue to brainwash my generation of voters, which is why it is so important that we push back on this.
And while the Republican National Committee still has no TikTok page, the White House is bringing in influential TikTokers to give them talking points on how to discuss things like rising gas prices. 18-year-old Ellie Zeeler has more than 10 million followers.
Why is gas so expensive, and why is the United States inflation rate at a 4-time decade high? I had the opportunity to ask the White House why gas down the street is $7, and here's what they said.
Regarding Ukraine, the Biden administration turned to Aaron Parnas, since he's a powerful TikTok influencer in this area, with live streams that garner millions of views.
For the first 15 minutes or so, they briefed us on what the United States is doing to help European allies. And then the remaining 30 minutes, we were able to ask questions like journalists about concepts that our viewers, or questions that our viewers wanted answers to.
One criticism here is that the White House is engaging in state-run propaganda through the younger generation's top social media platform. Democrats, however, see it as a strategy poised to pay political dividends.
Is that a genius Democratic move, or a Lord help our country movement, a moment, if you will, that the White House is bringing in influential TikTokers?
It is wise of them because they understand that these sites are powerful. They recognize that they are winning with my demographic of voters, and they realize that the Republican Party, our side of the aisle, is doing nothing to change that.
Another complication is that many Republicans are reluctant to get on TikTok because of its connection to China and privacy concerns. That personal data could be stolen. So instead, they turn to Instagram and Snapchat, two other healthy, viable alternatives. But what about old school campaigning? How effective can that still be?
If you don't go on TikTok, you can do this other ways. You have to kind of double up the efforts on other platforms or other ways to get Gen Zers in. In other words, that's the strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Get on all of the other sites and then meet these voters where they are in person, right? There's no more effective campaign tool or no more persuasive method you can win a voter over by looking them in the eyes.
At this point for the GOP, winning over voters on the issues and in-person campaigning the old-fashioned way may be their best bet, because when it comes to TikTok, it's no contest. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
That's going to do it tonight for Faith Nation. We'll see you tomorrow.